Hi, everybody. My name is Ted Drake. I lead accessibility at Intuit, accessibility and inclusive design at Intuit. And I'm joined today by Marco. And Marco, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Yep. Hey everyone, my name is Marco Salsiccia. I'm the mobile accessibility leader here at Intuit.
And I'm also the global co-chair, program chair for the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference. Diane Delaney is co-chairing it with me this year. And this presentation was originally proposed for the 2025 CSUN conference. We've done significant changes to it. You're not getting the same presentation, but this is a great opportunity for me to remind you that the call for presentations and workshops is open right now. So if you're interested in speaking at the 2026 CSUN conference, the CSUN Assistive Technology Conference, please go and put in your submission for proposals. Also, Jared talked about sharing our slides. I have a SlideShare net. It's SlideShare website. It's slideshare.net/7Mary4. Um, that SlideShare's been around forever. So I think my slides go back to like 2001. I'll just put it quickly in the chat. I will update the my SlideShare. I'll upload these slides in the next day or so. So as we were talking about, a lot of people are talking about AI and images and descriptions, and most of the presentations that we've gone to is, hey, look how exciting it is. I can open up Be My Eyes and I can get something described. But they're kind of like, you've seen them over and over and over because they're more about the wow factor of something that could create an image description. And what we're trying to talk about today is not about how this works or wow, look at this thing work, but it's more like why should you be using it? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? Especially when we're looking at two use cases. One is a large company that has a large website and they're uploading a lot of images and they would like to use AI to create basic alt text. Um, it's a valid reason. They may not have content designers to do it manually. So if they're going to be using AI to automatically upload images to their content repository, then how can we do it best? The other is someone that's an individual contributor and they're uploading images and maybe they don't know how to write good alt text. Maybe they're not actually able to see the image that they're uploading, so it's hard for them to describe them. So they may want to use AI to create these alt text. So what we're going to be talking about today is um, how we're going to explore why. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next slide so you actually see the agenda. I'm going to talk briefly about the history of alt text. Where did we go, and how did we get to what we are right now? Best practices for image links, because I think this is one of the biggest issues with alt text, and incorporating AI in image generation. So from a company like Intuit or MailChimp, let's say you're in MailChimp and you own a bakery and you want to upload an image to MailChimp to use in one of your email newsletters. MailChimp does provide the ability to auto describe that image. And then you can say, hey, this is an alt text I like. Let me go ahead and use it. So if you're going to be doing something like that, how can we do it best? And then Marco's going to talk about how all of this AI-powered descriptions is not always good, because he's going to talk about the importance of verbosity. He's also going to talk about personalization using AI as a user and how we can respect the user's use of AI, personal AI tools. And again, we're going to wrap it up with some best practices for use of AI and non-AI, just best practices for image descriptions. And when I gave this in CSUN, I hate to go back to another previous presentation, but when I gave this in CSUN, I had a lot of slides that talked about the history of alt text. And I had a lot of funny videos with Lucy Greco, but I wanted to save some time so that because we've gotten to a point now where we really need to talk about the strategies and the issues and the challenges. So I'm going to simplify this. For those that are not able to see the slides, I have a screenshot of lingscars.com. And a lot of people know this website. It's a used car website in England. And it's alive. This is like taken today or recently, but it looks like it was made in 2000. It's got an overloading amount of images and colors and patterns and stuff. It's a classic example if you want to show what a website looked like 25 years ago. So that's what I'm showing an example of. So HTML1, this is the very first part of HTML1, included the image tag. So we've had images from the very beginning. And then in HTML 1.2, the alt was required. So originally you could use the image without the alt, but then in 1.2 they said, hey, wait a minute, we need to make sure that there's a description of these images. And then, as you can see in Ling's cars, we shifted from a document-based web where everything was accessible to this chaos. And I like to credit slash blame a book called Creating Killer Websites. This book was published by Dave Siegel, and it basically said, here's all the ways you can destroy HTML in order to make your websites look amazing. When I say amazing, I mean eye-popping and overwhelming. And with that, we also learned that, hey, alt text is great for spamming SEO words. So um, since we're using the alt text, well, let's throw in 500 keywords into your alt text for an image. These are the kind of things that were happening in around 25 years ago. I remember when I first started, which was 2020. I actually had to, 2000, I'm sorry. I had to actually fight a team who wanted to keyword spam the alt text. And I'm like, no, we can't spam the keyword into the alt text, but let's put them in the title attribute. So that was my 25 years ago. I will say that we keyword spammed the title attribute. Um, and then we started having things like Wave, where we started having automated testing. And automated testing started to recognize that we have a lot of images out there that don't have alt attributes. We have a lot of images out there that have bad alt text. And then we started getting the scope of what is this thing that we're creating. We also had the shift from creating killer websites to standards-based web development, which is what I got into at an early stage. Standards-based web development says, let's go back to the standard and let's build things the way they're meant to be. Hence, let's make them accessible. So with Wave, we started recognizing that images have to have alt text. And if you want you want your web page to pass these automated testing, what do we put for alt text? So unfortunately, what we see a lot, and I have to say we're guilty of this as well, is alt equals image alt text or alt equals sunset hyphen Hawaii.jpg. Um, you're seeing all of these like let's throw something into the alt attribute in order to give us something that passes the automated testing. I will say, at Intuit, we started using AI generated alt text about 5, 6 years ago. And that was because we had alt equals image alt text across all of our websites. It was just like the default. It was just put into the CMS and it was done incorrectly. And so it was one way for us to say, if we're going to be putting some default text into our CMS, let's at least put decent text into that CMS. And theoretically, the editors should have been editing that alt text. But I hate to say it, we still have some images with image alt text in them today. After we started realizing that our alt text was bad, then we started thinking about what is the art of alt text? How do we not only make it pass automated testing, but how can we make them delightful? One of the ways that we're doing this, and Marco, when he joined into it, he was really pushing for a decorative first approach, which means when you put an image on a website, it should have alt equals quote code. It should be treated as decorative because we're not an image, we're not at Intuit, we're not a company that is like Instagram or Flickr, where images are our business. So most of the images on our websites are going to be decorative. So let's use an empty alt string as the first step, and then we add descriptions whenever needed. There was also a really great article by Leonie Watson about how do you write good alt text that explains you chose this image to put into that web page. And there's a reason why you chose it. So explain the purpose of that image, so that the blind screen reader user can have the same impression as a sighted person who's seeing that image. So those are two of the ways that we've kind of looked at alt text, the art of alt text. So then Facebook released their AI image descriptions. Oof. And that was really cool. It was mind blowing. All of a sudden, you get a Facebook and it would say, this image may include a dog. And that was like, wow, we actually can say that this image may include a dog. So then everybody started doing AI alt text, and we had this avalanche of alt text. And then you had these web pages that had um, 15, 25 images, and each image had a 500 character description because, hey, we can use AI and it can do everything. Um, so today, what we're going to be talking about today is let's recognize when and how to use AI. Let's not just use it because it's available. Let's just use it because it can solve a purpose. And many times it's not needed. We shouldn't be using it. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And that's how we got from the early days of the internet to where we are now. And it comes down to the Shakespearean quote, to alt or not to alt. Well, I should say to alt equals quote, quote, or not to alt equals quote, quote. Do we make it decorative or not? The benefits of the decorative first approach, it reduces verbosity for screen readers. If you've got a lot of decorative images that are not providing context to a page and they're treated as decorative, instead of having, generic alt text or a short alt text, that's going to make it a lot easier for many screen reader users to go through that page quickly. Especially if they're decorative, they don't really need to know what is this image all the time. Also, it's easy to implement. When you're writing your code, it's not difficult to say when I insert an image, the default is alt equals quote, quote, unless the content management system has a specific alt text. So that means that 90% of your images don't have something in the CMS. So 90% of your images are going to get alt equals quote, quote. Those 10% of the images in your CMS, the content editor has actually written something specific about that image. Those images are going to then have a good alt text. That's the benefits of a decorative first. Now, the problem with it is a lot of times these images that we're treating as decorative are the only object within a link. And when you have an image with empty alt text and you make that a link, then you have problems. The link has no label. So they're either going to tell you the image URL or they're going to tell you the href value. Should be telling you the href value of the link because it's a link and it doesn't know what's inside it. So it should be telling you the href, and that's not a good experience. You also have a loss of context because some of these images do provide context, but we're giving them alt equals quote, quote. So they're essentially blocking that. We see this a lot when you're doing a comparison table and you have images of check marks. And basically, essentially, you have no check marks. You have no way of knowing that something is supported or not supported. And the other thing that we noticed is images are skipped. So when you're trying to navigate a page by images, it's telling you that there are no images on the page. And if there are no images on the page, then you're not able to quickly pull up your personal AI and say, describe this image for me. You'd have to use AI and say, describe the whole page instead of describe this image. So that is a problem also, is that you may have some images that are important, but they're not being seen, so they can't be individually described. And I'll have a good example of this in a bit. So what do we do for images? First, alt equals quote, quote, the image doesn't exist, essentially. And so the link, like I mentioned, the link is announced as an href value. And the images cannot be accessed by, sorry, I already talked about this slide, so let me move forward.
Hey, Ted, we're not hearing the audio there. You might just maybe try that setting one more time.
Could you say that again?
Yeah, we're
You want
not
me to
hearing
reset?
Yeah, maybe try that share option again. We're just not hearing the audio at all there.
Okay, I'll try one more. Sorry about that. I was trying to make that work earlier. When I am sharing, your share options do not have audio. And I went into layouts and options. Oh, I see it now. Okay, it was hidden. Okay,
It had all equals quote, quote on it.
yeah. So what this video is this is Lucy Greco, and we've been reviewing a web page, and she's talking about how she's not seeing the images, and also the links are not adequate.
I don't need the file name, people. I just need the name of the actual item.
As a person that's not seeing the screen, do any of these recipes sound delicious or something that might intrigue you?
No, because I have no idea. I mean, I think it might be an Asian chicken, the chicken of my people.
Toasted peanut butter and honey sandwich on rosemary chocolate bread. Link heading level 3.
And that one I know exactly what it is. It's a sandwich.
Okay.
And it's disgusting. On my phone, I can definitely use many different image description apps. And on the computer, I can use Be My AI. So I focus on it.
Banner landmark, main navigation landmark, global navigation menu bar, explore graphic.
Explore graphic.
No previous graphic.
You just went up to the top of the page.
There's no other graphics.
No next graphic. No next graphic. No next graphic. No previous graphic.
So you have a link
I
that
can't even
only
find it.
includes an image, and the image is alt equals quote quote. So
Oh,
what you're
God.
hearing is the URL of the link.
Got it. And that's why it's abbreviated and truncated in some cases.
And that's why you're not able to explore the images with AI, because it doesn't see the images.
Lovely. Lovely.
But that was a really cool image. It's got like two sandwiches that have been cut in half. Three halves are stacked on each other and one's separate. And it's got all this melted peanut butter oozing out between the bread. There's crumbs all over a wooden table. It looks like something you'd want to eat.
Crumbs is something that you should never have in a picture. But
Well, if it's a sandwich that you just cut in half, you kind of expect a few crumbs.
oh,
here.
okay. I am giving this probably a 2.
And how would it be improved for you?
I mean, being able to get that AI description, if I really wanted it, would be useful, would be incredibly useful.
So in this example from Food 52, they had a big image with a really descriptive image, really delicious looking image. But it was the only thing within a link, and it had no alt text. So what she was hearing was just the URL of the href. So let me go to the next slide. And of course, it's going to want to play the video again. Okay. So I've got a couple examples here. One is it's basically like an ad for QuickBooks Online. There's a logo to the left, and then to the right, it says QuickBooks Online, bring together your marketing tools and invoice data. In this instance, the logo of QuickBooks is decorative because it's followed by the name QuickBooks Online. So this is an example where I would use quote equal alt equals quote quote and make that icon decorative. The next one is an image of a sandwich. It's like like a hamburger bun that's overflowing with a cornucopia of chopped meat and vegetables and a dipping sauce on a plate. And the text says Brooklyn beef sandwich. So that Brooklyn beef sandwich doesn't really describe this sandwich. In this instance, it would be good to have an alt that actually describes that image, because Brooklyn beef sandwich could be anything. And this is where Leonie Watson wrote the article, Text Descriptions in Emotion-Rich Images from 2007. me see if I can copy and paste that into the link into the chat. Oh, no, I didn't get the link. So this is where with links, this is where I think that we have to be concerned with AI images and image descriptions. It's the biggest gap we have right now. So as I said, we have been using AI image descriptions at Intuit. We did it so that we could start providing better alt text on our websites. So here's how we kind of set it up. I am a content creator. I'm building a web page. I upload an image. And as that image is being pushed to all of our different servers, it's being resized, it's doing all sorts of stuff. It's also generating an image description. And then it takes that image description and it's comparing it into its word list. We have a set of words that we avoid, a set of words that we encourage. And then we run it through our content design guidelines to make sure that it matches the Intuit's voice and tone. And then that description is inserted into the content management system. And the person that is writing this article or that is uploading this image, now that the image has been moved to all of our distribution servers, it's been resized. They now have this image and they see that there is a suggested alt text. At that point, they can edit the alt text or they can mark it as descriptive, decorative. The key thing, though, is that the content editor is supposed to be reviewing that description. There always should be a person in the loop as opposed to that description automatically being used. And here's another video from Lucy, and she's going to talk a little bit more about how to make it better. But if you're using AI and the AI is generating a description that says, you know, 2 people pulling crates of tomatoes off of a pickup truck, as a content creator who's going to put that on a page, how would you recommend changing that if it was an article about, let's say, the farmer's market every Saturday morning?
I mean, if I was writing an article about the farmer's market with that image, I would say a few farmers getting ready for the morning and pulling out their stock.
Now, Kevin had a question. How do you force users to edit the AI generated alt text and not just use what was generated? Well, that's, you can't always force things to happen. You can set best practices, but when someone's uploading 100 images and they're on a deadline, I can't guarantee that they're always going to go through it and do it, but at least we have that process set up. And the worst case scenario is that the image gets a description. It's not like it's going to be a disaster. I'm going to skip past a slide. So if you see me going fast, you'll understand why, because I'm going to come back to this afterwards because I'd rather pass it over to Marco.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Ted.
Oh, and there is one thing I want to mention. Alt text is metadata. What I mean by metadata is alt text is content. It's information that's not visible on the screen. It's only available to people that use assistive technology, essentially, or those that have limited bandwidth and they're not seeing the images or they've turned off the images. In other words, you've got some really good information, but you're hiding it from many of your users. In an ideal situation, the page is self-explanatory and the image is decorative. So for instance, a recipe's description of an ooey gooey brownie with spice of caramel, that should be in the introductory paragraph of that recipe. It shouldn't be hidden within the alt text. So keep in mind that alt text is great and we need it. But if you're only providing that alt text to people that use assistive technology, then you're essentially blocking it from everybody else. So just keep in mind, maybe what you should be doing is instead of writing a complicated alt text for an image, you should be thinking about how that information could be provided to everybody by using good content design. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Marco.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, thanks, Ted. So yeah, I'm here to kind of talk about some of the experiences as a blind user that we have with AI currently. A lot of this stuff is changing so fast. That's why we gave this presentation back in March, and now things have changed. It just changes day to day. There are now like more personal ways of kind of managing AI as a user that's consuming web content around either apps or in websites, desktop or on mobile. And as Lucy said in her first video that Ted shared, there are a lot of apps and a lot of ways to do that. And so for folks that aren't aware of all of this, you have different apps that install on your phone or working on your computer that can manage grabbing image descriptions for you when you want more information about a specific image. So the most common one that is talked about a lot by the blind community is Be My Eyes or Be My AI. There's also Seeing AI from Microsoft. There's Ira AI. There's PickyBot for like videos. You can use ChatGPT. You can use Gemini, dumping videos or photos right into them, and then providing you with a whole call and response or have a conversational experience with the AI to get more information or details about a specific image. They're even so on the desktop, you have Be My Eyes. VoiceOver has a very rudimentary image recognition feature on Mac OS. Windows does have Be My Eyes, so you can focus on an image, pull open a contextual menu, and grab image description from that, and so on and so forth. There's also AI built into wearables. So with all the talk about Meta glasses and Echo Vision and other things like that, there are onboard AI systems that allow me to kind of wear the glasses, walk around, and ask descriptions about my surroundings, or maybe read menus, even though it takes a little bit of work to get that going. But you can read signs, you can get some live OCR, you can do some good, just very quick descriptions of your surroundings and have that kind of editable depending on the level of detail that you want. The other thing about AI that's really come now that it's kind of been in the mainstream for a while is that if you have a personal instance of your AI, so if you're subscribed to ChatGPT, for instance, it starts taking on your voice and tone. So the more that you feed into the AI, the more it's going to start kind of talking back to you with your own personal voice, which can kind of help get your own personal take on descriptions. This can get kind of creepy in some ways, but it's really interesting to experience firsthand when you start dumping in images or videos and getting hot takes on it in ways that you yourself would actually speak, depending on how much data you've given the AI model. One of the another thing that's coming out of that conversation is the Turing effect, where we start trusting AI a lot because it's speaking in our own voice, where the Turing test is given to kind of determine if you're talking to a robot or a human. But the Turing effect is, when you talk to a robot enough that it starts seeming human, you start interacting with it and talking to it like another human, and you just sort of forget that it's a robot. And that's something to kind of be really aware of. The more of your voice and tone that it starts taking and giving back to you. So it is kind of undeniable now that a lot of AI tools are out there kind of giving blind and low vision users like a way to kind of experience the visual world around them, get more information from their apps. And again, on a website or in an app, if you can focus on the image and gain access to it, that allows you to pull up like the share sheet in iOS, for instance, which gives us access to all of those AI tools. You share it with Be My Eyes, you share it with Ira AI, you share it with Seeing AI, and you quickly get up a screen that pulls up and has the description given, and you can start asking more questions. You can do kind of like a brute force method where you take a screenshot if you think there's an image there, and then throw that screenshot at an AI app. Or now with the instance of the connection of Siri to ChatGPT on iOS, for instance, or with Gemini over on Android, you can now just ask, Siri, like what's on the screen, and it will it'll do the screenshot for you and give you back a description. So there are a variety of ways of getting description from an AI model. Now, there are some problems with this. So if you rely solely on AI, and this is also coming from a lot of the research students projects that have come out over the past year, in the blind subreddit, in a lot of different areas where those of us who are blind or low vision kind of talk. a lot of students are making solutions by using AI only to provide alt text on images around a website. And some of them were just taking full-on screenshots of the website, throwing it at an AI, and popping out like a bunch of descriptions to fill in the alt values of every image on the page. That included decorative images, which obviously caused a lot of problems. But so I kind of broke it down into 4 things to think about for anyone that's considering using AI only for generating alt text. When you rely solely on AI, basically the problems are that the AI generation tends to be overly verbose if you don't give it any kind of constraints or the right prompts. The AI output also doesn't have any context as to what is around the picture, like what is giving this picture purpose on your website. There are a lot of inaccuracies, and a lot of folks are now kind of weighing the talk about calling it hallucinations or confabulations. Essentially, the AI will get stuff wrong, and if it has to fill in a lot of gaps, it will start assuming and filling in a lot of details that aren't there. And we have some samples of that. And then again, if you're only using AI to generate the alt text, the beauty of AI is being able to ask clarifying questions and get the detail that you want personally out of the image, as opposed to having just alt text generated for you. So for overly verbose descriptions, generally the idea or the best practice for AI or for alt text is have it around 120 characters. You can give or take a few, maybe go up as high as 200, but we don't want to sit there listening to an entire novel when we're focusing on an image on a website. Again, overly verbose descriptions, adding to all the content. It's a lot of cognitive load when you have a site packed with images. That may be giving some help to the context, but if it isn't, then it's better to have that kind of shortened or just not there. If you don't put any constraints on your prompts, the output of the AI can be extremely verbose. And I have a list here of just some of the current apps that are being used for AI generation or behind the scenes. And you can kind of see the chart here about what's coming out. Just using some of the apps that I use personally. Be My AI will pop out a alt text or a description. It's about 451 characters, and that will go all the way up to PickyBot, which can be used for video and for images, which also aggregates or doesn't aggregate, but it allows you to select anything from Amazon to Claude, to various versions of ChatGPT, to Grok, to Llama. It has all kinds of different models you can connect to, and the ChatGPT 5 one will actually spit out almost over a 3,000 character description because it goes really, really in depth into it.
Marco, before we move on to this one, one of the questions in the chat was, let me find it specifically. What are the best practices for images of charts or graphs? Is AI something that could be used here? I'll give a quick description that I think I put on this image is that it's a graph of multiple AI tools and the character counts the character count of what they were using in their descriptions. And it shows that while the standard is 120 characters, you can see how some of them are extremely large compared to that. Now, that's a bit verbose for an alt text. It could be something as simple as, a chart comparing character counts of AI descriptions. But if that chart was available, then I would assume that you could take that chart and ask your AI to expand on that description. How would you come across when you see a chart? How do you usually deal with it?
Yeah, so there's a few things that go into this. I figured this question would have come up because we're just talking about general images. But yes, if you do have a chart or a graph, any kind of data representation, it's good to always have that data existing in an accessible format near the chart. So for example, in this very slide, the different the AI model and the amount of characters it generates is there in plain text, along with the visual representation of the data. So in this case, the alt text or the graph could be very succinct and very brief, that it is a chart depicting the data, and then the data is already there for me to navigate. On a website, if you have a chart, you should always have like the tabular data nearby. Or if you don't write it out altogether in another paragraph that's next to the chart. Depending on the size of the chart, you can also use alt text to just explain the chart data very briefly and concisely. So like if you were to talk about the data of this chart, like what is this chart representing to somebody over the phone, how would you speak that? Like how would you say that to someone? And that would be generally the alt text that you can come up with that. Like what's the general trend of the data? What are some key highlights of the data that's being shown? But always have that data that's generating that chart available in multiple ways around the chart itself. That's
Yeah,
definitely a good question.
I would also add that if you're putting a chart on a website, if you're putting it on iOS, please activate and make it available to the iOS chart library. Marco's our mobile expert. He knows exactly the library, but putting a chart through iOS that has all the information provides an excellent experience. And if you're using web, High Charts provides a great experience also. So you can choose the libraries you use in order to give the best experience.
Right. And again, with AI, I mean, we haven't gotten to that yet, but you can try to use AI to have it describe the chart, but be very wary of the output. Again, because when it comes to OCR, depending on the model that you're using, AI might get it wrong. It might hallucinate, it might miss a number here and there. So if you are going to try to use AI to have a graph described, I would be extremely vigilant about checking and double checking what's coming out of that.
I'll move to the next slide for you, Marco.
Okay. So context is everything. So the models only have access to what you're feeding it. You know, if you have let's say you're an Amazon or you're a product website, and you just have a picture of someone holding a bag, maybe it's like a luggage bag, and you throw that image into an AI, it's going to try to describe absolutely everything about the image without any guidance. If the AI doesn't know what it's supposed to focus on, it will focus on everything, and you might not be generating the right alt text for what you want people to focus on in the image. Again, we'll reiterate this over and over again, but the purpose drives the description of the image. So if you want people to focus on the bag, maybe you want the alt text to be very specific to only describing the bag, the features of the bag, not necessarily the house and trees of the person behind, or that's behind the subject of the image holding the bag, right? Because that increases the verbosity, and it gets kind of frustrating when you run into that a lot, where you just don't have a lot of information that you don't want or need. It can create misunderstandings between the image itself and the adjacent content. So again, if the alt text doesn't match what you're trying to talk about or the purpose or tone of your general context, then you create some dissonance there for the overall user experience for someone who's blind or low vision or consuming the alt text.
And on the next one.
Yep.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Are you ready? So now it's the making things up slide.
Yeah. Sorry. Yep. So making things up. This is, there is a lot going on here in the world of AI about hallucinations or confabulations, where AI it still is inaccurate. And the danger is that it's very confidently inaccurate. When you provide an imagery, it will try to, if it doesn't really understand something or isn't sure, it doesn't generally say so. It just goes for it and will start waxing poetic about anything that you throw at it. And it tries to assume to fill in what you've given it in the prompts. Some other issues are all of these models are, they're coded by humans. and humans may have inherent bias. And a friend of mine, Dr. Cindy Bennett, does a lot of work on this, researching this over at Google about how disability is treated when it comes to generating alt text, or how different models treat the treat disabilities, or even some sanitize it altogether, regarding language or inclusive language. When hallucinations or confabulations are made, it can make people make mistakes. If they're relying on the image to have some kind of information, if it is an informative image and they need that data, and you're not paying attention to what the AI is outputting, you might be accidentally giving them the wrong information. And whenever you are using AI to do this, there's a constant need for lateral research. So if I do some AI work, or if I pull in an image and I do some I do a description on it, if I pull it into another model and I start getting different information, that's when I can start reaching out to humans just to confirm something about the image. Or if I'm getting information from the image, I start researching that specific information away from the AI model, and just do some searching myself and do lateral research. So in
And
terms of demonstrating like how hallucinations can happen, if we move to the next slide, we have
yeah,
a fun little slide here. My project partner, Chancey Fleet, took a picture and threw it at her AI to get a description. And this is a description that came out. So it's about a small green caterpillar resting on a shirt, and it even has a little bit of compassionate language in there about, you know, treating the caterpillar to you know, it's a living creature. How do you get it off the shirt? So yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a cute little.
Mark,
Mhm.
I'll go ahead and read the specific. It says, quote
Oh yeah, sorry.
unquote, a small green caterpillar resting on an orange-red shirt with a collar. The shirt has a pattern of dark blue geometric shapes. The caterpillar is in the center of the image. It appears to be alive. If you need to remove it, please do so gently, as it is a living creature.
So yeah, so we got some compassion in there. We've got some personal voice in there. We have some good description about the general, uh, the caterpillar and the shirt itself. Now let's see what the actual image was that she was trying to get described.
Uh, do you want me to describe it? It looks like somebody visited the Heinz Museum in, is it Pittsburgh or Philadelphia? It's a red shirt with some graphic elements, and there's a pickle pinned to the shirt.
Yeah, so it's a Heinz Pickle World's Fair pin. It's a vintage pin from the 60s. And she hadn't worn it in a while and decided to take a photo of it. And that's what she got. So even in all AI models, there seems to be a bug here. Um, but that's where it's very confident. And, you know, if I took a picture of myself and it suddenly told me there was a bug on me, I really don't know what I would do, but I'd try to figure out what was going on. But note how confident it was that it was a caterpillar as opposed to a pickle. And then it's worth noting that Ira AI knew that it was a pickle. Be My AI didn't thought it was a caterpillar. The voiceover image recognition on iOS, when you focus on that in the Photos app, it actually says that there's a caterpillar. So yeah, a lot of the AI models are kind of going toe to toe about whether it's a caterpillar or a pickle. So it's kind of a fun one. And then kind of a not so fun exploration of hallucinations is disability sanitization. So the next slide, my friend Connor Scott Gardner was he was creating a flyer for disabled university students, so specifically blind and low vision students that were coming to university, and they wanted to have some information about uh, just anything that they need to know about getting started at the university. They created the flyer. They threw it at an AI tool on their computer to kind of just see how things were coming out, because we use AI to kind of figure out layout, color, things that kind of just help us design things on our own. And the response they got back removed the word blind from the description. It got everything else, it described everything else about the flyer, but it didn't say the word blind. And there are a few models that just don't like that word for some reason. Some models will actively deny our own representation and replace it with what they think is correct by themselves. Like, for example, with Claude, I've noticed that when you specifically say, if you have someone who's blind in an image or in a video, and you try to get them described, it will always replace it with visually impaired, which maybe a few years ago was something that was very commonly used, but now those of us in the blind low vision community, or some of us, were kind of promoting using the word blind as our own identity. That's how we want to be represented, not visually impaired. But Claude will not let you say blind, or it will never say blind. It'll always replace it with that specific terminology. So this is also something to be really pay a lot of attention to, especially if you have someone with disabilities being represented in an image. Make sure that you're using the identity and that they want to have used, especially in the community.
The next
And the
slide.
next slide, a clarifying experience. The real beauty of AI is just it's all about the clarification. So if I throw an image at AI, I'm able to have like a back and forth conversation with the AI tool to get the information that I want. The models can also respond to correction. So if you know there's something in the image and you call the AI out for your own personal instance, it will try to self-correct itself. Now, this doesn't mean that it'll go back into the main data lake of the entire model. It's just your own personal instance. But still, so for your own experience, it may start, again, adopting your personal voice and your personal attitude and figure out how to describe things in the way that you would like. Now, the models can elaborate with more detail upon additional requests. The problem is the more detail that you ask for in a specific image, that leads more to more assumptions. The more information or data that it has to kind of make up to fill in your request, the more chance there is for hallucinations or confabulations, or just making everything up. Yeah, so it's a higher opportunity for failure, and it's going to draw on other things around the image to try to increase its own confidence in what it's giving back to you. So the next slide is where to go from here.
Yeah.
So again, generally the idea is don't rely solely on AI for creating alt text for websites. Human copywriters tend to be much more efficient because they know the products, they know the context of the imagery, and they'll be able to kind of go through and correct any kind of inconsistencies or inaccuracies that an AI is producing. If you have a lot of imagery that needs to be described, always have someone go over it. Because you don't want any wrong conclusions being drawn from the imagery that you're getting described, and you want to make sure that you're representing everything appropriately for your audience. So we've kind of gone over some of the best practices in terms of character length. So 120 characters, give or take, is an average. And if you're having trouble coming up with alt text, again, think about. I borrow this from my friend Tim Harshberger when I used to work at DQ. When we were training folks on how to create alt text, he had this great. He and his brother had this great concept of, again, calling someone on the phone, and how would you describe this image to someone on the phone? And the words that you speak when you are trying to describe an image over the phone to a friend, that becomes the alt text of the image. And then you always let purpose drive the description of the image. Depending on the context of the image, I don't need to know like every single graphical detail about an icon. I don't need to know yeah, a lot of the general details that don't matter in terms of the context. Why was that image placed amidst this context? Why is it on the page? What are you trying to convey to the user? That's the stuff you want to kind of keep in mind when you're writing your alt text, or when you are adjusting the AI output that you're getting from anything that you're using. So again, AI is good for getting you in the right direction, provided that you are being vigilant and thinking about all the points that I brought up earlier. But I just would say that just don't rely specifically on it and think that everything's okay, and let a script run, let it tag all of your images and think that you're good.
Mark, I'm going to go back to slide 9 and I'll take over on that one because we're down to about 10 minutes.
Oh, wow. Yeah, sorry.
So we did do some research on prompting, and we're not expert prompters. There are many of you out there that could probably create better prompts, but we were trying to find something simple. So let's just say that you do have to use AI and you want to match something that's descriptive but not too many characters. So the first, I've got an image, and this is off the Intuit website, and it's a woman smiling. She's wearing a white t-shirt and she's standing in front of some bougainvillea, which are some pink flowers you see in Southern California. There's some text that says the global financial technology platform that gives you the power to prosper. And then it has the name of the products, TurboTax, QuickBooks, Credit Karma, and MailChimp. So that's essentially what we're looking at. So I uploaded the image to ChatGPT 5 and I said, describe the image in under 100 characters, focusing on visible elements and actions, exclude emotions or subjective details, use an 8th grade reading level. And the result was woman in a white shirt stands in her pink flowers near a wall. But as Marco's been saying, is that you're losing the context of the page. So I created another prompt and I said, determine the purpose of this image based on this surrounding text. And then I inserted the text, the global financial technology platform that gives you the power to prosper. And then I said, describe the image in under 100 characters, focusing on visual elements and actions, exclude emotions or subjective details, use an 8th grade reading level. I said that fast because it's exactly what I had for the previous one. And now what it says is smiling woman under pink flowers, showing financial confidence with Intuit's tools. So the concept, though, what we're talking about is how can you use AI if you're going to use AI for making some simple image text? Telling it to limit it to 100 characters, that keeps you away from the 120 limit. 8th grade reading level makes it readable. Excluding emotions and subjective details keeps you from, getting too poetic about it. And then also giving it the option of including what's the context of this image? Why is this image put onto the page? What's the text surrounding it? So that's just an example. You may have your own prompt, but this is a way that you can start thinking about redoing your prompting so that you can start limiting it and bringing in better values. With that, I think we're ready to go to questions and answers. We only have 5 minutes, so I think maybe 1 or 2.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ted, Marco. That was just wonderful. Yes, quite a few questions that have come in. First one goes back to the first video you showed of Lucy not being able to have that image even identified for AI. So the question is, I don't understand why she isn't able to see the image with AI. Is it because they considered it decorative? Does this only happen with image links that are tagged as decorative?
It's more complicated when it's an image link. It's more complicated because it's not just an image on the page, but it's the value that's being associated with the link. So when you have a link where the only value is an image with with a decorative image, then the assistive technology has to figure out, well, what does this link represent? And the only thing it can do is grab the href, the value of the href. Food 52 is just an example. At least their links, their hrefs have the article title in the href. It's not like a string of 25 characters, random characters. But that is a common, in the previous presentation we did at CSUN, I expanded on that information as the best way of doing when you have these images. But ideally in this instance, it was like a link with an image followed by a link with the headline recipe title. And it's just better if you have, instead of 2 links, you have 1 link. You open up the link, you have an image, you either use alt equals quote quote or you use a small description, and then you have the recipe title. That would be the ideal experience. But when you're using an image that's decorative and it's the only source of a link, then you're having two problems. You have that the images can't be found, so it can't be investigated with the personal AI. And you have a link, and that link may not be understandable.
Great, thank you. There were some questions and comments about AI providing an indication that alt text has been generated by AI, such as beginning with maybe an image of, right, some sort of indicator. And there was a kind of I think related question about like embedding those descriptions right into the image file itself, so it carries regardless of context. And I think the context is everything slide kind of addressed that. But yeah, are there any thoughts about having a way to include those descriptions and maybe an indication as to whether they're AI generated or not? And there's some comments about like user trust of the source of that alternative text.
Yeah, I think language is, again, going through and checking the language is important. We're all starting to kind of be very wary about certain like linguistic patterns that AI are coming out with. Maybe an image of something that suggests this kind of emotion or this kind of experience. I mean, in this case, because it's not like your personal data being sent to an AI for this content generation. This is something coming from the company that's providing these images. I would just make sure that the content writers and the copywriters who are checking the alt text can go in and make sure that the language that's being produced is equivalent to the language they're already using in the content itself. So usually companies will have their own type of language patterns and their language guidelines. So making sure that the AI that's coming up with this alt text, that you're matching that. As for the like kind of the metadata that kind of follows an image, one interesting thing that I've noticed in iOS or from the Apple ecosystem is if I take a picture on my phone and if I add the markup of an image description, so you go to the image and photos, you hit edit, you go to markup, you navigate through a whole bunch of menus to get to image description. That gives you a little alt text box. You can add as much of description as you want there. And when you're done and you apply that, it actually carries over to the system. So when I take that photo and I airdrop it to my Mac and I look at it in Finder, what I wrote in my image description, VoiceOver speaks that content. When I've tried putting that image into just like a basic HTML website, just to kind of play around with it, that alt text carried over, which is really interesting. I think it's just a VoiceOver feature, but so it sounds like there's some kind of work being done on that in terms of that particular ecosystem. So I just want to kind of highlight that. That's what it reminded me of.
Yeah, and I would also add that there's a criticality to it. How important is that image? If you're a news website and you're using AI generated alt text, I think that there's a really good reason for that to be specified that this is an AI generated alt text because it's about trust. If it's a image, a website that doesn't have a high level of trust, that the image is not critical. And I'm thinking of someone's personal blog and maybe they upload a picture of Trevi Fountain or something like that. That might be an area where that person may not feel like they need to tell you that it's AI generated. Because remember, if it's alt text equals AI generated Trevi Fountain in Rome, assistive technology users are probably going to get tired of hearing AI generated on every image when it's not really critical. So for journalism, for financial things, if there's legal reasons, like it's a law site, then that might be where it's really important to specify that it's AI generated.
Oh, and what's being AI generated? Is it the alt text or is it the image?
The question was about the alt text, I believe.
Got it. But what if it's an AI generated image?
Again, I think that
Yeah.
journalists should not be using AI generated images if it's relevant, for a news article. If it's someone that just went to Trevi Fountain and they forgot to take a picture and they're using AI to kind of put themselves in front of the Trevi Fountain, again, I don't think that that's needs to be specified that this is AI. It just depends. That's my impression is, you know, what's the trust importance on that image in its
Mm.
context.